You wake into a room that feels colder than the night before. Same bed, same woman, different energy. She rolls to her side and asks a question that looks harmless on the surface. It carries a hidden blade. Why did you say that yesterday? She is not asking for data. She is measuring the hinge of your soul. Your pulse rises. Words stumble at your throat. You feel something slipping. Not respect. Not attraction. Gravity. In that quiet second, she is not listening to what you say. She is listening to whether you believe it. The floorboards of your identity creak. You answer with a justification, a paragraph, a hedge, a soft apology that tries to hold both sides of a contradiction. Her eyes glaze. The temperature drops. A man dies in a room like this every day. Not with a bang, but with a surrender. There is a mirror beneath every conversation. In that mirror, you either see a sovereign or you see a supplicant. The difference is not charm, not height, not money. The difference is frame. Your frame is the small, invisible courtroom that travels with you. Your voice is the gavel. Your boundaries are the laws. Your mission is the Constitution. She enters the courtroom and immediately feels whether the space is governed or whether it is chaos, wearing cologne. If you do not govern it, she will try. Not because she is cruel. Because nature hates a vacuum and power abhors a vacancy. Now hear a name that most men only know as shadow. Machiavelli. Not the cartoon villain. Not the caricature of cold manipulation. The man who studied the fragile dance between perception and power. He wrote of men who wanted to rule and men who were ruled without noticing when it happened. He taught that there are moments when mercy is cruelty and moments when measured severity is a higher form of care. He taught that appearances create reality, that fortune storms against the unprepared, and that the only antidote is disciplined will and decisive action. He taught that the lion and the fox are not costumes, but instruments to be played with timing and restraint. He taught that power is less about force and more about the quiet mastery of what others believe you are. Here is the promise. If you understand what he was really saying, not the gossip but the bone, you will stop confusing kindness with weakness and leadership with tyranny. You will feel the switch inside you click from reactivity to command. You will know why a woman tests you even when she loves you. You will know how to meet those tests without anger or apology. You will stop negotiating with need. You will become a man whose presence relaxes the room because it is governed. Here is the thesis. A woman is testing your frame right now because nature designed her to verify the reality of your sovereignty. She is neither enemy nor judge. She is the weather that reveals whether your house is built. You do not pass these tests by explanation or pleading. You pass them by governing perception with truth, by setting necessary law early, by acting with calm, proportional strength, and by aligning your life to a mission that no gaze can derail. The man who governs his frame governs the relationship. The man who abdicates his frame becomes an ornament in a kingdom he does not own. Why is this hard? Because you were told that love is the absence of conflict. Because you equated disagreement with danger. Because you believed that if you fold enough, you will be chosen forever. That story was written to sell compliance as virtue. It empties your spine. It erases your edges. It tells you to earn peace by trading sovereignty. The cost is always attraction, always trust, always your own respect. When you trade away the authority to define reality, you invite a test every hour. She does not do it to torment you. She does it because the storm checks the wall. The wall that does not resist crumbles, and the crumbling invites a bigger storm. So understand the deeper current. She is asking the oldest question in biology. Are you safe to follow? Safe does not mean soft. Safe means predictable, principled, and strong. Safe means you keep your word and keep your temper. Safe means you lead yourself harder than you lead anyone else. Safe means your yes is clean and your no is final. Safe means you do not explode when challenged, and you do not yield truth to avoid discomfort. Safe means you do not escalate into drama, and you do not retreat into silence. Safe means you stand and speak with a calm that does not ask permission. If you want to be that man, take Machiavelli not as a villain, but as a physician. He diagnosed the sickness of weak rule and prescribed the medicine of necessary firmness, strategic mercy, and masterful perception. He warned that fortune punishes the unready and rewards those who build dikes before the flood. He warned that rulers who seek love at the expense of respect lose both, while those who ground respect in steady conduct often gain love as a byproduct. You are not a prince of Florence, but you are the ruler of a realm, and that realm is the field of meanings around you. Govern it, or someone else will. Most men misunderstand the heart of his teaching. They get lost in the thorn and miss the rose. The core is not cruelty. The core is necessity. The world is not obligated to comply with your wishes. Fortune will not cradle your softness. People will test the edges of your map, because that is how they learn where the land ends and the sea begins. Machiavelli's single blazing insight is this: in a world ruled by change and uncertainty, the man who holds power is the man who shapes perceptions with disciplined action. Virtue is not virtue in the moral sense. It is the fusion of courage, cunning, and timing. It is the art of acting in a way that makes reality bend toward your decision. It is the willingness to do what is necessary and no more. It is the strength to be both fox and lion, reading the terrain with intelligence and imposing order with presence. Think of your frame as a fortified city. The walls are your boundaries. The gates are your standards of access. The courtyards are your habits, where daily routines display the rhythm of your reign. The watchtowers are your awareness, scanning for storms, scanning for deceit, scanning for the small compromises that grow into sieges. Outside the walls is fortune, the wind of her moods, the pressure of her social tests, the gossip of the tribe, the noise of timelines. These are not enemies, they are weather. Weather does not apologize. It only reveals what is built and what is not. If your city is strong, the rain cleanses. If your city is weak, the rain becomes a flood, and the flood becomes a story about how love is impossible. That story is a lie. What is true is simpler and harder. Build. He insists on the power of appearances, not fakery. Appearances as the public face of real discipline. If you must be feared or loved, be respected first. Respect is born of consistent law, decisive action, and visible self-control. That is the appearance, but it only endures when the substance matches it. With a woman, this means you do not bluff. You do not posture. You do not threaten consequences you will not enforce. You set clear expectations about how you operate, and you live them without fanfare. You become the man whose schedule is already full of purpose. You become the man whose kindness never undermines his clarity. He warns against building fortresses. Physical walls isolate rulers from their people. In your life, this means you do not hide behind silence, sarcasm, or distance. You meet conflict with presence. You stay accessible while remaining immovable on principle. He teaches that fortune favors the bold, who move with measured speed. In your life, this means you do not sit in endless analysis when a decision is needed. You decide, you act, you adjust. You track the results with unemotional eyes. You do not swing wild. You do not freeze. You touch the world like a chess master touches the board, already thinking 3 moves ahead, yet ready to pivot when a new pattern emerges. He separates cruelty well used from cruelty abused. Translated into love, this is the difference between setting a boundary once with firmness versus punishing endlessly through nagging and contempt. Cruelty well used in romance is not cruelty at all. It is the refusal to let the relationship rot in ambiguity. It is the bravery to say what is true early, clearly, and kindly. It is the discipline to end what should be ended before resentment poisons both of you. Harsh in the moment, merciful in the long run. That is what he means by necessity. So the concept stands bright. Frame is sovereignty. Sovereignty is the disciplined perception that you are the author of your conduct, and thus the quiet architect of how others experience you. The promise of understanding is this: when you embody Vert, you no longer chase approval in the marketplace of moods. You become a fixed star in a sky that loves to spin. She will test you because life tests you. She will relax because you do not. Here is the turning of the blade. If sovereign presence is the engine, how does it operate under the heat lamp of modern intimacy? How do you answer the tests that feel personal without making them personal? How do you hold power without hardening your heart? The bridge from theory to practice is waiting like a drawbridge at dawn. The gates are about to open. Are you ready to walk through? A woman asks if you really meant what you said about your goals. The surface question is about calendars and plans. The hidden dynamic is about whether your mission is real or just decoration. The common male response is to explain, to overtalk, to compensate with enthusiasm. He stacks promises on promises and turns his vision into a sales pitch. The more he sells, the more she senses that the shop is empty. Her respect tilts. Her testing increases. The better response is pure Machiavellian necessity. Reduce words. Increase demonstration. You confirm once, succinct and calm, and then you point to present action. You rise earlier. You keep your training without interruption. You decline distractions that violate the mission. You make a quiet adjustment to your schedule that signals the hierarchy of values. You do not ask for applause. The shift that follows is subtle and decisive. She believes because you act. Attraction returns because certainty returns. A woman arrives late on purpose. The surface is minutes. The hidden dynamic is authority. The common male response is anger without spine or silence without signal. He scolds like a parent or sulks like a child. Both responses confess weakness. The sovereign response is simple law. You keep your standard without drama. You do not wait beyond the time you announced. You leave a message once. You go, not to punish, but to live by the clock you set. Future plans are recalibrated with clarity. The message is clean. Time is sacred in your city. She experiences consequence as a natural force, not as a tantrum. Respect rises because you respected yourself first. A woman teases you in front of friends. The surface is humor. The hidden dynamic is rank. The common male response is to jab back harder or to collapse into defensive laughter. Both reveal insecurity. The ruler answers with warmth and poise. He deflects with a line that reframes the moment and returns to the conversation he prefers. He does not need to win the point because he owns the scene. If the teasing veers into disrespect, he marks the line once, calmly and in private, and then enforces distance if it continues. The result is predictable. The group feels his ease. She feels the gravity of his standards. Playfulness resumes inside a territory of respect. A woman escalates emotionally over a small issue. The surface is the issue. The hidden dynamic is safety. The untrained man argues facts during a storm. He throws logic at thunder. He loses twice. The sovereign does what Machiavelli would advise when the city faces weather. He does not try to stop the rain. He stabilizes the ground. Voice low, breath slow. Observations instead of accusations. Agreement where possible without surrendering truth. Space if needed. Then later, when the sky clears, he addresses the pattern and sets the law that protects both. Not to control her, but to prevent mutual destruction. Strength that contains. Calm that guides. After enough repetitions, the storms shorten and the bond deepens because she learns that his presence makes chaos smaller. A woman asks you to choose between your mission and her evening plan. The surface is a calendar conflict. The hidden dynamic is whether she can move your throne with a glance. The common male response is to sacrifice the mission reflexively or to cling to it with cold detachment. Both reactions reveal fear. The ruler knows that love grows under a hierarchy. He keeps the mission at the center and still gives strategically. He offers an alternative that preserves the priority. He communicates the why, not to persuade, but to share the architecture. He follows through. Over time, she stops fighting the mission and begins to align with it because it has proven itself immovable and generous. So the diagnosis lands. She is not the enemy. She is the essential audit. She is the weather that shows whether your walls are mortar or chalk. The more you plead, the more you will be tested. The more you posture, the more you will be tested. The more you embody calm, necessary law, the more the tests transform into trust. The question sharpens. When the next test arrives, will you argue for your frame, or will you live it? The answer is already forming in the way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you decide. It is forming in the schedule you keep and the words you refuse to say. It is forming in the man you are when the room forgets to watch. Let the lesson bite. You cannot buy respect with niceness. You cannot hold love by abandoning your standard. You cannot preserve peace by avoiding the moment of truth. Power in romance is not domination. It is governance. It is the art of aligning your conduct so thoroughly with your principles that persuasion becomes unnecessary. That is what she is checking every day. Not whether you are perfect, whether you are predictable in your strength, whether your frame is a shelter she can trust. Once there was a man who worked in the Florentine government who knew both honors and humiliation. He watched power change hands like dice. He was imprisoned and tortured when the winds shifted. He returned to his small farm in exile and studied the brutal arithmetic of rule until the logic shone like steel. That pain is not gossip. It is the forge. He wrote because fortune had stripped him to the skeleton, and he wanted to leave. A manual for men who would not be eaten by storms. Imagine him at a table lit by a small lamp, the city far away, hearing the dogs at night, and the memory of authority like a phantom at his shoulder. From that edge, he learned what comfort hides. Comfort hides how fast respect evaporates when you stumble. Comfort hides the price of indecision. Comfort hides the danger of seeking love without the ballast of law. Bring that pain home. You once had a woman enthralled, and then you became safe in the wrong way. You began to narrate every feeling, to request permission for every step, to ask for reassurance like a child begging for dessert. It was honest. It was human. It drained the river. She woke one morning and realized that she could move your mood with a sigh. She did not celebrate. She lost her anchor. The lesson is merciless and merciful. You must be generous without becoming malleable. You must be open without becoming porous. You must be emotionally available while remaining structurally unyielding. She needs to feel your warmth against the frame, not instead of it. Train this into your bones. Begin with your mornings. Wake when you said you would wake. Hydrate, move, read, build. Not to show her. To become the man who cannot be knocked off his axis by a text. When you speak, simplify. Cut the hedges. Replace apologies that protect comfort with statements that protect truth. When you commit, follow through. And if you cannot, communicate early and clearly, then repair fully. Make a law once rather than 1,000 reminders. If a line is crossed, step back with calm and precision. Do not explain the line for hours. Mark it, hold it, let time do the teaching. Own your time as if it were gold. It is. Invest in friendships with men who tell you the truth. Remove your attention from screens that make you a spectator in your own life. Redirect that attention to the craft that puts weight in your voice. Curate your appearance, not as vanity, but as the outward sign of inner order. Grooming, posture, eye contact, tone. These are banners on your castle. They signal to the nervous system of every person you meet. Order lives here. Disorder cannot nest here. Become precise in your yes and your no. Reward loyalty with warmth and access. Distance yourself from disrespect without malice, quickly and cleanly. Build dikes against fortune. Emergency fund. Clean nutrition. A room that is tidy and tools that are sharp. Do these things to feel the hum of quiet power that no mood can erase. When you are challenged, do not equalize with sarcasm. Elevate with clarity. When you are praised, do not melt. Absorb and continue. When you are uncertain, do not bluff. Ask, learn, decide. When she asks you to surrender your mission in the name of love, refuse the false choice and offer the third path that honors the mission and the bond. When old insecurity whispers that you are not enough unless you please, return to the law. Respect first. Love follows. If love tries to lead, oath will wander. The far edges matter most. When betrayal occurs, and if it ever does, do not turn vindictive. Do not craft elaborate punishments that keep you chained to the past. Enforce the boundary with finality. Mourn like a king in private. Rebuild the city. When fortune blesses you, do not grow soft. Increase standards. Increase gratitude. Increase vigilance. The same wind that brought bounty can carry it away. You do not fear that truth. You use it to stay sharp, generous, and awake. This is not about controlling another human. It is about controlling the only domain you are given, your conduct, your attention, your word, your frame. When that domain is ordered, influence grows naturally, romance stabilizes, and tests become smaller. Not because the world becomes easy, but because you become heavy. Heavy like an oak. Heavy like a bell. Heavy like a vow that keeps ringing long after the room goes silent. Now choose. There are only two identities available in the theater of intimacy. You can be the man who lives by weather, or you can be the man who builds against it. The first chases harmony and finds contempt. The second embraces necessary conflict and finds peace. The first trades away the mantle of rule for temporary affection and wakes to emptiness. The second accepts the cost of clarity and discovers that love grows wild inside a well-tended garden. Hear Machiavelli without the cartoon mask. Seek respect in order to become worthy of love. Seek love by sacrificing respect, and you will lose both. So take the crown that no one else can wear for you. Govern your time as if a nation depended on it. Govern your words until they are instruments and not leaks. Govern your reactions until storms reveal your calm instead of provoking your chaos. Govern your standards until a woman can trust that when she reaches for you, she finds the same man today and tomorrow. Stand in a room and feel what it is to be the reason the room settles. Not rigid, alive and decisive, not domineering. Grounded and invitational, not performative, quietly unshakable. You will be tested again before the day ends. The test will not announce itself. It never does. It will slip in as a question, a delay, a tease, a spike of emotion, a request that trespasses your law. This time, you will not rush to fill the silence. You will breathe. You will check the constitution of your kingdom. You will answer with the fewest words required and the clearest action available. You will offer warmth inside the boundary. You will give generously without selling your throne. If the test repeats, you will escalate your clarity. If respect fails, you will make the hardest decision with the calm of a ruler who values the health of his city over the comfort of his moment. From this day forward, walk as if you have already been crowned by your own discipline. Let your mission sit at the center like a strong fire that warms everyone who comes close without bending to any gust of approval. Let your generosity be deliberate and your affection be abundant within the borders that keep both of you safe. Let your eyes signal that you see without flinching and will not be led by moods. Let your voice carry the cadence of a man who has done hard things alone and still chooses to love. You do not need to dominate to lead. You do not need to harden to endure. You need to align every piece of your life with the truth you claim. Say less, do more. Set law early. Enforce with kindness and certainty. Reward loyalty. Remove yourself from what drains and disrespects. Invest in what compounds. Build dikes against fortune. Become both fox and lion, discerning and formidable, gentle with the worthy and immovable with the line. Do this long enough, and you will watch tests turn into trust, curiosity turn into devotion, romance turn into a partnership that grows stronger with weather instead of weaker. The final warning stands like a gate at dusk. If you refuse sovereignty, someone will govern you by accident. If you pursue love as a strategy to escape yourself, you will meet the same emptiness in every new bed. If you cling to comfort, you will suffer quietly in a palace without doors. The final promise stands like dawn. If you accept the burden of rule, if you build your frame as a city of clear laws and warm hearths, if you meet tests with presence and necessity, you will walk through life held by a strength that does not need to shout. You will feel peace that does not depend on weather. You will become the kind of man whose very existence upgrades the lives he touches. What will you be when the next question lands? Subject or sovereign? The answer is not in your mouth. It is in your schedule, your standards, your stance. Rise now and make one act that confirms your crown. Drink water, train, write. Call the meeting you were avoiding. Send the message that sets the boundary. Close the door and build. Tonight she will feel it. Tomorrow you will feel it more. A year from now you will not recognize the man who begged for harmony. You will be the calm inside the storm, the king who learned to love by learning to rule.